everybody. Welcome to our parenting forum. I'm here with Georgia from Know How Mom.
Hello.
She's going to be telling us all about how to keep your relationship strong after you first bring baby home. But first I want to tell you a little bit about her organization and her background so that you know who she is and you can go to one of her classes later because she has some great classes as resources for all of you.
Oh.
So why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Georgia Anderson, and basically I have this crazy dream, and I have a dream to kind of make parenting and relationship education normal. Kind of like we go to the gym to take care of our body, or everyone all of a sudden thinks it's really cool to drink kale and spinach. Like 15 years ago, nobody did. And what we've learned is that that's really good for us, and it's a good habit to get into. So what I have is this dream to make parent education kind of the same as that. I started teaching parenting classes actually for my church in California about 30 years ago, and fell in love with it not because I loved the education part, but I loved what it was doing for me and my family. And I had this idea like, why aren't we all educated? We all bring home kids to our houses and we get married, and yet we just kind of do what our parents did, right? We don't really do what we know works necessarily. We just do what comes to us. And in the last 30 to 50 years, there's been some incredible research about what actually works in relationships. So what I did was got some extra education through the Gottman Institute and active parenting, and decided that this was my mission now that my kids are gone. I want to start educating parents and couples on how really what makes the success of a relationship and how they can change things to make life better for themselves.
That's awesome. So that's what we're all about. So I'm really excited. So we're going to start with a few questions that we've prepared for Georgia. She's going to answer them for us, and then feel free to ask any questions that you have. We have Katie sitting by reading the questions for us, so she'll let us know. And then we'll have a Q&A session afterwards, though, as well, if you don't have any, if you don't want to interrupt. So first question, Georgia, was sometimes parents are overwhelmed with the care that a new baby takes. They expect the perfect Instagram experience, because all of us want that, let's be honest, or Pinterest if you're like me. But they end up feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, and they don't feel very positive about having a baby. Is that normal? And what do you suggest for healthy recovery after baby is here while they're still bonding with baby and working with your husband and everything?
Okay, well, Michelle, that's a loaded question.
I know, it's a lot.
But I'm going to start with this. I think that, we all have this kind of fairy tale expectation, especially because we live in an Instagram world, right, and a visual world. And we have this idea that we're going to bring home this little toy, and it's going to be our little toy, and we're going to have so much fun. And there is an element of that when we bring a baby home, but it's also, bringing a baby home is a lot like landing in Japan and not speaking Japanese and never having been in that culture.
Oh my gosh, I totally felt that way.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, what just happened and where am I and how do I get anywhere? Because I can't read and I don't know what's going on, right? And your body is going through all these hormonal changes. You feel like you've been hit by a truck, possibly. Some people don't, but a lot of people do, right? Your body has been through this big, huge birth experience, and your hormones have done this huge change once you have your baby. Your hormones change when you're pregnant, but then again, right when you have the baby, your hormones change. So this is like landing in a foreign country and you can't read the road signs and you don't know what to do. So I think that one of the most important things, and one of the reasons I love the Bringing Baby Home class in particular, is that it talks about the reality of bringing a baby home. And what it not only, we get a lot of education about feeding and diapering and all that kind of stuff, and about what we want our labor and delivery to be like. We spend eternity thinking about that.
I had a beautiful birthing plan.
Yes.
It was very detailed.
It was very detailed.
You have this birthing plan, but then all of a sudden you're home.
Yeah.
And you're exhausted and you're tired and you're not feeling that romantic towards your spouse, and the baby's crying and keeping you up all night, and you're like, what just happened, right?
Yeah.
And what do I do from here? So I think number one, it's super important to get educated about what's normal. And it's normal, for instance, to be really exhausted and to not be able to get anything healthy to eat, so you grab the chips, and to know that that's normal. And so that once you know that's normal, you can make a plan. So, and knowing that, your relationship with your spouse is going to feel a little bit different and strained, and you're going to have this new person that takes all your time and attention. So what can you do? You know, what are you going to do in that situation? So education, I think, is super important. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you totally did. So, me to get educated. I totally remember feeling that way. Like, when we brought my daughter home, I just remember, like, I literally cried for a week and a half every single day, all day long, because I was just so, like, overwhelmed. And, like, I had a really bad family experience, so, like, my expectations, I had none, and I didn't know where to go. So Instagram was really, or like Instagram and Pinterest and things, like that's how you totally feel like it's supposed to be. So
yes,
getting education, getting it from real people is such good advice. So next question then too, we've been hearing a lot about like the Emily Effect is a new organization that just started for PPD. So how common is PPD with moms? I feel like it's something that you don't really hear about until like afterwards. Like you hear like whisperings about it, and then like the doctor asks you about it when you go to the pediatrician, and you're like, I'm fine, I guess.
You don't want
like,
to be that person, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be that person.
Okay, well, guess what? Even in reported cases, we know that 50% of new mothers experience postpartum depression.
Wow.
That's half of
insane.
us. And that's the reported cases. So it is really normal. You know, the length and severity varies. And there's a difference between postpartum depression and baby blues. Actually, 80% of mothers experience baby blues.
Wow.
And that's just hormones, like what you feel before your period, or, you know, you're just like out of whack. And baby blues are really, really normal. Like it's normal. It's not normal not to have baby blues.
Yeah.
You are the normal person if you're like me and cried for a week.
Yeah, that is the normal, right? And that's just kind of weepy, and you don't know why you're crying, but you're just weepy, but eventually you kind of pull out of it. So, you know, baby blues, you should kind of pull out of that by 2 to 3 weeks. You kind of like, okay, get your feet on the ground and you can march forward. But postpartum depression is a much deeper and long-lasting problem.
Okay.
And it's really normal, and the biggest cause of it is actually lack of sleep. So you can take a person who hasn't even had a baby and put them in a lab and wake them up every 3 or 4 hours.
And give them PPD.
And you can give them
intense.
depression.
Wow.
Yeah. You can give a person depression by waking them up every 3 to 4 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So,
And we're expected to act normal.
and we're expected to bounce back and go back to
back into our
work
skinny jeans.
and get in our skinny jeans. And guess what, you guys? That is not normal, and it's not even appropriate, right? So your body is making this huge adjustment hormonally, plus you're not getting sleep. And it's really, I think then we put that expectation on ourselves, and it increases the postpartum depression.
For sure.
So one of the huge factors in postpartum depression is actually your spouse.
Okay.
And we teach a lot about this in class, and we educate husbands because they're the best barometer. Because they know what your normal is. They know what it's like for you to be normal, and they know what a real downer change is.
Yeah.
So your spouse and people who are close to you, you know, whether it's friends, family, whoever your besties are, those people are your barometer. And if they notice that you're withdrawing, that you're really have that blank face and that goes on for a long time, that you're not connecting with your baby, that's another huge issue in postpartum depression, is that we're not connecting with the baby. And the baby senses that, and babies actually start to respond in a depressed way as well. So
when we say long-lasting, are we talking like a month, 2 months, 3 months, like
how long?
Like how long is long? Sorry, guys, there's like a fly in here.
Yeah.
When we say long-lasting, like how, because like what's the difference in longevity between like baby blues and then when it starts going into PPD?
Yeah. Well, so if it lasts more than 2 or 3 weeks, you really want to be looking at getting some solutions. And there are some really good solutions that you can do without getting psychotherapy, right? And we teach those in class. And again, those involve the people who are closest to you. There can be an 80% reduction in postpartum depression if you just become a good listener.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we talk about listening skills a lot in our class, and teach what a good listener does. And so if a mom has someone she can bounce that off of, and this is how I'm feeling, and am I normal, and this is what the baby's doing, if she can just talk about it with someone who's a good listener, her symptoms are going to be reduced by sometimes up to 80%.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's huge.
So we
Yeah.
need sounding boards.
Yeah, we need sounding boards.
This is why women talk a lot.
You can
This
come
guy
in
wants to
here
be
and we
interviewed.
will listen.
Yeah, come here.
chat
Our
with
Cubby
us.
moms are so happy to listen. to
Awesome.
everything.
Yeah, having a community, which you guys are creating so well, I have to
Thanks.
say. Having a community of people you can talk to. And sometimes online is the best we can do, but having a face-to-face person is really important,
Yeah.
right, that you can be with
Yeah.
and talk to. Also, we talk about having a plan for nutrition. When you guys have your babies, I remember, like, even getting food in your mouth, those, you know, a new baby takes about 10 hours of care a day.
Oh my gosh.
So,
No wonder
I
you're
never
so
thought about
exhausted.
that, but it makes
I
sense.
feel like I'm done.
Yeah.
yeah, so, you know, you think about grabbing a snack. Well, are you going to go peel carrots and, you know, make some dip and all that, right? You're going to grab chips or cookies or whatever's right there.
I definitely do
So,
that.
and that affects postpartum depression.
Yeah.
So, getting some proper nutrition, having a plan for it, and being able to talk to your partner or your family or your besties about it. You know, having a plan, whatever it is, whether someone's going to make a week's worth of veggie cups or something like that for you is a big deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and also, how can you trade off? You're both going to be lacking sleep, but how can you make some plans and adjustments for who can alternate getting the baby up or changing the baby at night or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And also, starting to get outside is kind of a big deal. Being out in nature, even if it's your backyard next to the garden or looking at flowers, getting outside, breathing fresh air is a really big deal as well. And when you're not happy, you don't want to do that. You
Yeah.
don't want to get outside. You don't want to put on your coat. So having someone aware of that and saying, hey, let's go out for a walk is a really big deal.
And helping, and I think a big thing is helping you do that. I'll get the baby
Yes.
ready. I'll
Yeah.
get the stroller. I'll
Yeah.
get this. Just put on your shoes.
Just taking a task and helping because it
I
does
love
seem
that.
overwhelming.
And with that too, so I had my daughter in winter in December, like end of December to December 28th. So it was freezing outside and everything, and my stepmom is actually half Finnish. And she says the Finns have this saying, like, there's no bad weather, just poor clothing choices.
That's
So, and they actually, like, they legit go and, like, stick their babies in a bassinet outside in, like, the middle
Absolutely.
of winter. So don't be afraid to take your babies outside. If it's the middle of winter, just make sure you dress them in layers.
Yeah.
Get, like, a little sleeping bag thingy that, like, will keep them nice and warm. There
For
is
sure.
just poor clothing choices.
Yeah,
No bad weather.
have the right equipment and have a plan and
Yeah.
have some support to help get you out there. It's
Yeah.
really a big deal. Also, another one in postpartum depression, one of the things we talk about is some soul connection or a spiritual connection. That's really important. Spirituality, you know, it can be religion for you or it can be a connection, somehow meditation, some way to connect with yourself and other people. So that's a really important anecdote to postpartum depression is some kind of a connection.
So is that, like, writing your journal even? Like,
Could be
okay.
journaling. It could be, again, that talk with other people.
Okay.
You know, having a group you go to or having a stress-reducing conversation is what we call it, with someone who's a good listener.
Okay.
So having that, or if it's with God, right? So just having that connection with someone that you feel trusting and you can talk to.
That's awesome. I didn't know there were so many ways to, like, treat PPD without, like, I think that's why some people are
Without
afraid of,
medication.
like, saying that they have PPD.
Right.
Because they're like, I don't want to go see a therapist. I don't want to.
Medication.
And
I don't want to take medication.
they don't think it's normal.
Yeah.
But it is normal and natural, and there are natural, common ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
You just have to have a plan.
I love it, and I love not just like me. I'm not pregnant. I'm not planning on having kids soon, but it's nice to know what I can do for my friends that are having kids.
Absolutely.
Take them over a veggie tray before they come home, and just those little things, being a listening ear. And I think that's awesome for all of us that can take away from it.
Yeah, looking out for each other is huge that way.
Just keep this all in mind for when I have my baby.
Veggie trays coming your way.
Perfect. No, I think those are great. So with that then too, like we talked a lot about the spouse being involved with PPD and things. So what are some strategies? I know like lots of moms struggle because they want to breastfeed the baby and then they're taking care of the baby and the dad's going back to work, especially here in the U.S. where we don't have a lot of paternity leave. So what are some strategies for including dad and bonding with baby and making sure that relationship gets created?
Yeah, I think that's really important. In fact, the Gottman Institute, who I've done my training with, they're kind of the nation's foremost relationship experts. In fact, John Gottman's called the Einstein of love.
That's awesome.
He can actually predict divorce with 94% accuracy.
Stop.
Holy
Yeah,
Hannah.
he totally
That's
can.
crazy.
And he can do it by watching a couple have a conflict conversation for about 3 minutes.
Wow.
and then asking them about how their relationship started. So he has really revolutionized relationship education because he has watched couples for decades and recorded their heart rate and how they interact with each other and their facial expressions and taken their urine and tested for stress hormones in their bodies and all this stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Very scientific.
We always heard about things like this in my degree, and now it's like real.
Now it's real. Now it's real. So what he was studying was newlywed couples, actually, and then he would study them after they have a baby and watch what happened to their relationship 10 years down the road. And what he found was that the baby had a huge impact on the relationship, and 75% of couples would actually, not at the day the baby's born, but eventually experience relationship meltdown within 5 or 10 years after the baby was born.
Oh my
But it started with the baby being there. Because like you're saying, mom is breastfeeding the baby, she's caring for the baby, this baby takes over her life, and dad starts to feel pushed out. And he starts to feel like, I don't matter here, I'm not a part of this. And so what we teach in class is how to coordinate your family and put your couplehood right in the forefront of that. But what that means is, because you have this baby that takes all this time, right? What it means is that dad's got to be part of that equation. And sometimes it's hard for dads because we feel like as the mother we have the instinct and we want to do everything the way we think we should do it. So
I'm totally,
yeah,
my poor husband.
we're all there, right?
I'm totally
we're all
guilty of
there.
that.
Like, how are you putting those pants on? Like, what are you doing with that diaper? It's really important that we make dad part of the team, and moms have the big responsibility for this because physically we're connected to the baby, and dad isn't so much. So it's our job as a mom to make dad feel connected to the baby. We can do that by asking him to bring the baby to us at night to feed. We can ask him to go with us and make sure we get outside ahead of time. So again, this is education and planning for the dad.
Okay.
We can do it by asking him to listen to us and maybe asking him to take a class and learn how to really do it effectively. I don't know, whatever. But making him part of your team and recognizing, babies, actually, dads are the preferred playmates to babies 3 to 1.
That's a real thing, though.
It's a real thing.
My husband is my daughter's absolute favorite. I come pick Hallie up from daycare, and she's like, "Oh, hey, Mom." Scott goes, and she's like, "Daddy!" Like, runs up to him and gives him the biggest hug. I'm like,
it's true. And
just break my heart, why don't you?
There's research about that. In a nutshell, it's basically because dads play like babies. They play like kids. Yeah. Well, of course the baby wants to play with them because dads play like babies. They get really high and then really low, and then really high, and then they get really bored. So they change to something else. And that's a lot how a baby's brain works. And so it's super important that the dad be engaged because they learn so much emotional regulation from their dad.
Okay.
And we're always like, don't rile the baby up or don't get them all going. But actually, it's super important for the baby to have play like that.
Okay.
Because they learn how, eventually they're going to have to go to school and calm down after recess and come in and, but mom doesn't teach them that. Dad does by playing really crazy with them and then calming down and changing to another activity. So just knowing that research and knowing that that's real helps moms go, okay, I got to engage dad from day one. Yeah. And I need dad to be involved. And we do that by noticing what he does well and not criticizing him about it.
Yeah.
So making sure that he's engaged and that he can do it his way and it's okay. Right?
Yeah, I totally remember, you can totally tell me if I'm wrong, but so my degree is in psychology. So I just remember talking like throughout my coursework that positive reinforcement always goes a way longer way than like criticizing. Yeah. And like if you really want someone to do something right, start praising them and don't like punish them for doing things wrong. Just reteach them. So like, and I know that's super hard for me. I'm very loud now, but I'll be honest. But my great husband, he's so perfect. He is just so patient with me. He's like, Michelle, like you gotta calm down. Just like show me how to do it right. I'm like, okay, like he's so good. I don't know how I got him to marry me. That's okay.
Awesome.
So
yeah, I'll tell you one of the tricks.
So
one of the tricks we teach in class is that there's no such thing as constructive criticism. Yeah, there is no such thing. It actually is scientifically proven to start meltdown in the relationship. So what we teach is an antidote to that. It's not like we can't share problems with people, but the trick is to complain without blame. So instead of saying you're diapering the baby wrong, we could say something like, you know, honey, I'm worried that the diaper's going to explode when she pees or poops, you know, if we don't get the tapes over all the way or something. You know, you would complain without blame by saying it in an I message and not criticizing by saying, you're doing this. Instead say, I'm worried about this, and then give them something they can do to be your hero. Hey, would you mind just pulling it a little tighter so that I'm not worried? Putting it back on yourself and not criticizing the other person. So you can accomplish the same thing without being critical.
And that's still teaching them in a positive way, too.
Absolutely.
So
it's letting them actually be your hero, which we all like to be each other's hero, right?
Yeah.
So when we give something concrete that someone can do for us, instead of telling them what they're doing wrong, it's just going to make everything better. And if I can expound on that for a second, what the Gottman research has revolutionized also, you know, he started out as a child development. He was studying child development. But what he learned was that what went on between the parents was a lot more impactful on anything, like any specific skill or thing you do with your child. What's going on between the parents, like not criticizing and asking for help instead, had way more impact on the success of that child down the road than anything else.
Than anything.
Yeah. So that's why I'm so into teaching couples about their kids and how their relationship impacts their baby's development.
That's insane.
It really is.
So, and you've been talking a lot about like relationship meltdown. So what is that, and what are some warning signs of it after baby comes home?
Okay, so we talked about that 75% decrease in relationship happiness. And eventually, you know, either a couple could stay together but just not be happy, or they would get divorced down the road. So we have all these things to watch for that we talk about. And one of them is, if we're talking really general, is just that things feel more negative than positive.
Okay.
Now, nobody needs a picture-perfect marriage. They don't exist, right? I mean, we have
Don't
moments.
Don't fool yourself.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
We have moments of perfect happiness, but really life is just, we're trudging along, right? So what the warning sign is if things feel way more on the negative side than the positive side. Not that you don't have disagreements, not that you don't have, you know, moments of like, who did I marry anyway? Who are you? We all have those moments, right? But it's that the majority of the time things are more negative than positive. And we talk about what we call the 4 horsemen of relationship meltdown. And we've talked about criticism. That's the first one, and that's what starts the horseman coming into the relationship. But what criticism breeds is defensiveness, because when someone criticizes you get defensive. So that's the next one, and then the third one, when that continues to get worse, is that one partner is really looking down on the other partner and kind of has a superior feeling about the other person. And then finally, you get to a place what we call stonewalling, where you just are more comfortable not being together. And you may still be married, but you're not being together. And those same things happen with babies, parents, and kids. So it's relationships in general. It's learning anecdotes for those things. And the cool thing is, there are anecdotes for all those things that you can do.
Cool.
Yeah, that you don't necessarily have to go to a counselor, although there is some real help sometimes in counseling if you need it. But there are really educational tools that you can learn that can help you with all those things. That you can start tweaking the way you approach situations that will just change it.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I need to come to these classes. I really need some help. Well, that's cool. So, I'm just trying to think. So, with that, like, what are some of the anecdotes then for, like, defensiveness? Because we kind of talked about for criticism.
Yeah. So an anecdote for defensiveness is the simple rule is to take responsibility. So if somebody says, you know, you promised you'd come home before 6 and help with the baby, and you didn't come, and the person, so that's kind of a criticism. So what's the person going to say? Well, I'm working really hard at work, and I've tried all day to do everything. So the person who's being criticized wants to be defensive about that. But instead, what we can do is take a piece of responsibility and say, you know, you're right. I didn't get home when I said I was going to get home.
Yeah.
Just that statement to you right there.
It like automatically calms you down.
Right.
And it kind of makes you feel bad too. My husband is the best at like taking responsibility for things. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm the biggest jerk. I'm so, guys, I sound like a terrible wife. I really promise I'm not. But sometimes
we
I
all
just like get a little feisty.
Yeah, and we all do all those things. We all really do. We all do all those things. It's just the intensity and the frequency that we got to really watch. And learning how to say we're sorry. And there's also some really great ways to learn to say we're sorry that repair those things. So if you think that those things are going on in your relationship, you can work on them and you can fix them. And also, it's normal to do them sometimes. It's not that they're never going to happen. They are. They're going to happen. It's just the level of how often and how harsh it is. So those are the things we want to watch for. And knowing that, okay, we can take responsibility. Instead of defending ourselves, we can just take. It's so easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
simple.
easy to say. It's
simple.
really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's simple. And that's why education is so important, because you practice.
Yeah.
You practice it in a non-threatening situation. And then you can go back and do it. And you go home and practice, and you feel like, I feel so weird because I'm not used to doing this. But you know what? Anything you do for the first time is weird. Rollerblading is really hard the first time. You're really awkward. Okay?
Snowboarding, very hard.
Yeah, it's really awkward the first time, and you feel like a total dork. Well, same thing with relationship issues. Same thing with parental, we're really awkward with our first baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really awkward. We're not sure how to hold him when we bathe him or all those things. Well, accept it. Embrace the awkwardness of relating to someone in a positive way and start working on it.
That's fantastic. So that's all the questions that we have. Thank you so much. I learned so much, guys. I'm totally going to these classes. So do any of you guys have questions out there that are watching? We'll just give you a minute to kind of type up some questions.
We did have someone that says, Daddy play. Need to make more time for this, even though Eric is working late nights. So do you have any recommendations for conquering, want to make time for that daddy play, but he works late?
I don't know if you can adjust your schedule a little bit. I don't know. Everyone's got to learn, I'd say trial and error. Can he leave for work 15 minutes later? It's not like you need to play all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you find 15 minutes in your day? And an interesting thing about play is we have a great video in class about cooperative play where scientists are watching people play with their babies. And they watch a mom and dad in the same room with their baby. And sometimes the mom will be playing with the baby, and the dad will kind of put his head in front of the mom. Hey, baby. And it becomes really competitive. It's really interesting to watch how some couples compete for their baby's attention.
Okay.
And
that baby's just so dang cute.
It is. and we all want to be the favorite. But what happens is there starts to be competition, even in this little, play moment. Competition between the parents. Mm-hmm. So then we watch videos of parents who are playing cooperatively, like, oh, is it daddy? Oh, yeah, come on. And they're working together with the baby to play versus trying to one-up each other.
Okay.
It's super powerful for the baby because, again, the baby is learning everything about life from watching you.
Yeah.
And when they watch you compete, they're thinking that's how life works. So then they've got to be defensive, and they've got to be demanding, and they've got to be competitive. Instead of, oh, we can all enjoy this together. And I can think you're funny, and you think I'm funny, and the baby can go back and forth. So even if play, and that's kind of off your topic, but create just a few moments where you can all play together for 5 or 10 minutes a day. It's really powerful.
Yeah. So if he's working late nights, I know my husband, when we were dating, or when we were engaged and we were first married, he worked graveyards. And we would talk about that, trying to plan our family and stuff with him working graveyards. So we always just talked about, adjusting the baby's nap schedule, which I know can sometimes be harder, especially if they, are one of those babies that are very set in their own schedule.
Right.
But sometimes that can help, too, and I bet that would offer you a really good opportunity. Sorry, is there another question?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Recommendations for separation anxiety for 11-month-old. It makes leaving her so hard.
Well, first of all, recognizing that it's normal. Separation anxiety at 11 months is perfectly normal.
It's 100% normal. 110%
normal. Yeah. So I think, sometimes people call me a parenting expert. I think that the parents are the expert. And all I do is educate parents with all the research that's out there, and then you start to create what works for you. And do it with good knowledge. Don't just do something that, is just emotional and feels good to you, but actually take some research and some education and then decide how that works for your child, because you're the expert for your child. I think that knowing that will pass is one thing that's really helpful. And if, for instance, if they're going to daycare and you have no other option and you do have to leave them, knowing that will eventually pass is really important. But also maybe, just like you have a bedtime routine, have a goodbye routine with them where they know what to expect when you leave and they know what to expect when you come back. So there might be some little ritual you go through. that you sing a song together, or you read a little book together, or you have a little toy that you both love and you kiss, or you have friendship bracelet, and that's too little for an 11-month-old, but something that you create that's like a little ritual. And even though you're going to have to be firm and say goodbye at a time, they know that you're going to come back and the ritual will happen again, and that you'll be together again.
Yeah. And it will get better. My daughter's been in daycare since like 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
And she went through a phase of separation anxiety, and like doing those kinds of things, we started rituals and stuff. She's been way better. So, I mean, she still has moments, but it'll get better. Don't worry. Just keep doing it.
Okay, another question. How to help a painfully shy 4-year-old?
Oh, that's awesome. We were just talking about this last night. I teach an emotion coaching class, which is a class about emotional intelligence, building emotional intelligence in kids. And that's also by the Gottman Institute. But one of the things we talked about actually with shy children is being able to help them, starting at age 4 is a great time, helping them learn to name that emotion. So being able to label that emotion with that 4-year-old. Tell me what you're feeling. Are you feeling shy? Do you know what it means to be shy? Or tell me what it feels like in your body, and having them recognize physically what that feeling feels like, and talking about ahead of time when they might be feeling that feeling, what they could do about it. So when we're feeling shy, what do you need? What would help you? Well, I want to hold your hand. I want you to stay by me, whatever it is. And if that's appropriate, then we can say, okay, well, let's hold hands here for a while. Let's talk about some things that would help when we're feeling shy. Having someone or something to hold on to might be something we can do. And this is all talk ahead of time, right? Mm-hmm. It's something we can do. And how do you think so-and-so might be feeling? And helping them start to think, well, maybe they're feeling shy too. What can we do to help them if they're feeling shy? And we talk about ways that then we help our child deal with their shyness by reaching out to another child who might be feeling shy. So it's labeling that emotion and putting a name to it can be the start, so that they know someone hears them.
Yeah.
Right? So knowing someone hears you and empathizes with you can reduce, it's kind of like taking responsibility. Your physiology settles down right away. Mm-hmm. And you may still have the feeling, but you feel like you can take some steps to overcome it. Yeah. And even a 4-year-old can do that with a little bit of problem solving and encouragement. Yeah. And letting them know that you believe in them. Not like, oh, you're not shy, and dismissing it. You don't want to do that. Yeah. But letting them know, sometimes I feel shy too, and I don't want to go in a new place. It's kind of hard for me. Yeah.
Normalizing it.
Normalize it for them. And listening well to them helps do that. So putting a name to the emotion, and then asking them questions about what they think they could do about it.
That's so powerful to give kids the words to talk about their emotions, because so many kids nowadays don't, especially because social media is so big, and you're getting younger and younger, and they don't know how to deal with those emotions. It's so powerful to give them the words to talk about that,
right? And
recognize that in themselves. I love that.
And we know that. Get that fly.
I know this fly. We need a fly swatter. Sorry guys, we're promised we're not crazy.
Well,
me a little bit, but just a smidge.
Yeah. So teaching your child about shyness and recognizing that feeling and helping them verbalize it is actually more important to them. That raises their emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence, we know, is more important to their life success, including school, relationships, and work, than is IQ.
Wow.
So really being
That's
able
really
to calm yourself and recognize emotions in yourself and other people is going to give your child a huge head start.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Sorry, Katie's reading another question.
Yeah, I'm reading. Sorry. It's a long one. Okay, trying to find a way to work on bad behaviors with my 18-month-old and failing miserably. What is a good way? Yes, we do. What is a good way to show our kids that things like hitting and biting are not okay and have it be effective?
Okay. Well, that's a universal question. Again, last night we were talking about that very thing in class, and it's come up in the last 2 nights of classes as the number one issue, is the hitting and biting and sibling fighting. And how do we do that and still show a lot of love to our kids? Well, that's kind of a 5-week course that we teach.
She's not alone.
Well, no, but it's a big part of it. Every parent comes to parenting classes wanting discipline help, right? Yeah. And what they go away with is recognizing that the emotion part is really more important than the discipline part, but that's an important part. Okay,
so to work together.
Yeah.
Right.
So an 18-month-old is really at the very beginning of understanding discipline, right? So first of all, don't expect it to be effective immediately. Their brain is still under construction in a huge way. And they're just starting to connect that emotional part of their brain with the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational and emotional and empathetic part of their brain. That part is just really like the cement's just being poured, okay?
It does not exist yet,
yeah,
basically.
It doesn't exist. So they're way back in this emotional part, and they react to everything. So knowing, first of all, that you are on a long marathon path here. And what you try to do with them is set an expectation and gently reflect their feelings when they're, so you're teaching them, oh, you know, you really wanted that toy. You say it right out loud. You really wanted that toy badly. And you reflect like they're feeling because they hit because they wanted the toy, right? You really wanted that toy. It's not okay with me to hit your sister. I love her and I love you and I don't want you to hurt. Explaining to them why you're not going to allow them to hit. Give them a hug while you're talking to them. And then we start working with consequences. Now, an 18-month-old, the consequences have to be very small, just removing them from the situation for a minute. You know, timeouts are actually really effective if we emotion coach at the same time, if we talk about the feeling. But a timeout should be like 1 minute for a 1-year-old, 2 minutes for a 2-year-old, and timeout works up to about age 6, and then you've got to come up with other consequences after that.
That's good to know. I always wonder, like, how long will this actually work for?
Yeah. But, you know, separating the child from the positive things that are going on is one of the most effective discipline tools. And by discipline, I mean teaching, not punishment, right? We're trying to teach our child to be an adult. That's our job as a parent. So we're teaching our child and separating them from positive reinforcement, not from our love, but from positive reinforcement and being in the game and playing with the friends, separating them from that for a short amount of time. And when they're ready to come back, letting them come back. And again, 1 minute for a 1-year-old and on is a good way to start.
So I do have a question about that. Is that 1 minute rule like a hard and fast rule?
No.
Because I know for my daughter, she'll be 2 in December, and sometimes we do 1 minute, but she like still is not calmed down. So we'll give her like 2 or 3 minutes or even 4 minutes sometimes, depending on how upset she is.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll go in and talk to her afterwards and be like, this is why it wasn't good. But
Yeah. And also, you know, I have never seen Daniel Tiger, but I've heard about him.
I heard it's really, really good for teaching emotions.
I have watched my daughter with her child at the zoo. We were at the zoo, and he was you could see the tantrum was coming, and he was 18 months old. And you could see it was just about to happen, and she walked right up to him, got right down to his level, and she sang that song, If You Feel So Mad That You Wanna Roar. Have you guys heard it? Right?
Yeah.
This was my first experience.
We know it well.
And she said, take a deep breath, and he did it.
Whoa.
He took the deep
That's
breath.
awesome.
And she said, and count to 4. Okay, is that the song?
Yeah, that's the song.
It averted the tantrum.
That's crazy.
I mean, and that's not going to happen every time, but recognizing emotions in a child and helping them. So you're saying she has a hard time calming down. We can assist them in calming down.
Yeah.
We can say, let's take a deep breath 3 times and do it with them so they know you're on their team. And you want to help them calm down. You want to help them join back in the fun.
Yeah. That's
I love
awesome. I love it.
My kids love Daniel Tiger, and I think he's great.
I think I probably
Some
need to
great
start
little-
watching him.
He has some great little ditties for
I would get
teaching your kids.
educated by
Yeah.
watching.
I'm so sad they took it off Netflix. I was a little
did they?
devastated. It was very sad.
Okay, that's all the questions we have. Does anyone else have questions before we wrap
Or you
it
can
up?
type a yes before we
Type a yes real quick while you're typing your question.
wrap it up.
I don't think we have anything.
Okay,
We
I
did
would
have
just
someone
actually-
say, I love this woman. We had that comment on here. So
Oh,
thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks. I would love to invite anyone to get involved in our classes.
Yes.
Bringing Baby Home, we're doing the next one in January. I think January 7th. It's 2 Saturdays. So if you plan ahead, hopefully you can figure out a way. And babies under 6, nursing babies are welcome as long as they're not super verbal and you can actually concentrate on the class while you're there. So bring your nursing babies if you can or need to, and just, we have lots of good classes on the website on knowhowmom.com, and we'll be starting our winter classes. They'll be coming up right away. We're in the middle of our fall classes now, so winter classes will be posted next week.
Okay,
And we can direct those, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be posting a link to her website on our Facebook page in both the Cubby Community page and our regular, the Baby Cubby page. So feel free to follow that link if you want. And then, seriously, guys, she's so great. We're so glad that she was able to come and help
Thanks.
us.
And I am so happy to know about the baby cubby. I'm going to be like a regular customer.
Come in anytime. We love it. We might ask you all the questions while you're here.
I would love that. I'm all about it. I think we all just got to help each other and get educated. So
Yeah,
we'll do
I
it.
love it.
perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks, you
thank you.
guys.
Thanks, guys, for
having
joining.
me.